Hello.
Hi Neena, good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome Neena to Kitaabi and welcome to all the viewers at Kitaabi Baatein. I'm Abhishek, also known as Books Wale Bhaiya, and my guest today is, as often you know, she's Neena Rai. She's the author of best-selling book Amazing Ayodhya. And before we start, a brief about Neena Rai for the benefit of those who don't know. So Neena is an author and also an artist based out of New Delhi. She is an alumnus of the Army Public School, followed by a bachelor's in commerce from Delhi University and a postgraduate program in advertising and public relations from Indian Institute of Mass Communication. She's someone who can really be described as a multifaceted personality. She has worked into sales and marketing. She's worked as a columnist, as a flight attendant, as an account manager for Khalij Times. And for about an year, she also worked as a volunteer for Prime Minister Modi's election campaign. She's also a yoga enthusiast and a student of Sanskrit. And this is her first book, Amazing Ayodhya. And I must say, this does complete justice to the title, as Ayodhya is amazing and so is the book. And Neena, before we start discussing the book, I must say, you are someone who has lived many lives going by your profile. You've worked on a variety of, you can say, industries, variety of jobs. But as this is more about your, you can say, professional profile, so what about Neena as a person? I mean, if you were to describe yourself in your own words.
So a lot of people are very surprised by the varied number of choices in my work life that I have done.
Right.
And so they often ask me, a lot of people ask me, you did this and then you did this. And some of them comment like, is there something that you've left you haven't done?
Right.
So it's just, people are very curious. So I describe myself as a tree with many branches. And
Wonderful.
the tree is only one, but there are many branches, and those branches are the ones that I wished to discover. So
Right.
there was a time I remember I wanted to, and there are many reasons and many layers to the things that I did. I actually have a master's in communication. I always wanted to write, so that is very clear. That has been a very clear part of my life. I always wanted to paint. I always wanted to write. Even when I was a young girl, I was very talented with all these things. So it's just a simple amalgamation. And of course, I was a flight attendant. It was easy for me to do those things.
Right.
I wanted to travel abroad, and I wanted to do so many things, and so I did those.
Right. Wonderful. So two questions related to your book. So first is, how did the idea of writing a book came about? As we just talked, you worked on different things, and writing a book was not actually one of them. So how did the idea of writing a book? And secondly, as a lot of people do write about our itihas, our scriptures, but many of them, they write like some historical fiction, like they take facts from Ramayana, Mahabharata and make a story of their own. Many of them write books about Ramayana, Mahabharata. So how did you zero in on a very specific topic of describing Ayodhya in its entirety?
So the answer to this is also written in my book, and it says, why did I write this book? And for anybody who's curious, please take a look. The answer the main answer you'll find there. The whole story you'll find there. What got me onto this path. So one of the things that I want to say is that why the Valmiki Ramayana, why on Ayodhya, is because I am a devotee. So
Right.
as a devotee of Bhagwan, as a devotee of Lakshmi ji, as a devotee of Vishnu Lakshmi, as a devotee, and then obviously a devotee of Ram and Sita, it is very natural for you to want to know more about their life. And in the videos, in everything that you see on TV, I used to listen a lot to Katha Vachaks. So a lot of people who know me since I was a young girl, a young child, they know me as a very spiritual person. So they don't find it surprising at all. Those
Right.
who see me on a very frivolous level, in social atmospheres, at parties, at many other places, they cannot associate this side of the spiritual side of me to the sort of the social side of me.
Right. Right.
So they're always very curious, and they always ask me this question. So anyway, so I was a devotee, and there is so much known about Bhagwan's life and, you know, Sita ji's life in the jungle,
Right.
in the war, you know, the drama that happened. But if you ask them, but you know, but there's very little known about them when they lived in Ayodhya.
Right.
And so they are a prince and a princess who are then banished. You know, he's the crown prince. He's going to be, you know, crowned the next day. And right before he gets crowned, I mean, everything's ready. He is then sent to the jungle. So imagine that trauma, and then imagine as a princess, you're going to be, you know, the crown prince. You're going to be the queen, and then you're sent to the jungle. I mean, she's not sent. She goes by herself. She makes a choice to go. And so I wanted to know, you know, the life, that trauma of transit can, if you want to understand that trauma of transit, you have to know how their life was in Ayodhya city itself. And if you really want to know, then you read about Ayodhya. And the Valmiki Ramayana starts, the beginning of the Valmiki Ramayana is about Ayodhya, the glory of Ayodhya, how ancient it is, what it is like, how are the trees like, you know, how are the animals like, what animals are there, you know, what does it look like,
Right.
what sort of defense fortifications does it have? So all these things are mentioned in the Valmiki Ramayana. And it really intrigued me. And one of the things that I wrote this book about, because the Ram Mandir temple movement has been going on for so
Yes.
long, right?
Yes.
And, you know, I would listen to just bizarre conversations, bizarre justifications to not build the temple, you know, just denying everything. So those of you who followed this Ram Mandir movement, those of you who have followed, you know, this, you would know before, till the time the Congress government was there, even the fact that Ram existed was considered mythology.
Yes. Yes.
They were hell-bent on destroying Ram Setu.
Yeah.
So, you know, to me, it was like, is it that everything that the Hindus have and the Hindus are doing,
Right.
I mean, the Hindu gods, you know, they're supposed to be false gods, or they're supposed to be gods who didn't exist. This is supposed to be mythology. Why
Absolutely.
is it that? Why is it that the whole world has put the burden of proving Hindus that their gods are real, or they walked the earth, or the temples were there, or their civilization existed on Hindus? Why do we have to prove it again and again to ourselves?
I think it's only in the past few years that it is being called as itihas, and so always the term mythology was used. That it is mythology what we are reading, which has absolutely no basis. It's just for reading, and you know, there's no other significance. And so I think it's thanks to authors like you that it's actually being looked as the Hindu itihas and not mythology, something which is believed to have not much of a, you know, practical application in today's world. It's good for watching on TV, but probably there's nothing much to be learned or applied in your life from there.
And
So,
you'd be shocked to know that everything that is written in the book. So I am very interested in ancient civilization. So since I was a young girl, I was reading books on ancient civilizations. I was watching this, I was watching that, Peruvian civilization, Egyptian civilization. I would actually go and visit these places as well. So I've been to Angkor Wat, I've been to Peru, I have been to you know, Machu Picchu, I've been to Egypt. I lived in Egypt. My father was a diplomat,
right.
so I had time to spend a lot of, you know, many years there. So when I studied these civilizations out of curiosity, out of my visits, I realized the parallels that they have to what is written in our books, what is written in our way of life, their way of life. There are amazing number of parallels. Even today, a lot of concepts that we have in India are related to how our life was and how Valmiki describes life as being in Ayodhya. It's you know, today we do that. It's just basic common sense. And then a lot of things that we find in Ayodhya was followed across by numerous civilizations, not one, but numerous civilizations. And because of the paucity of you know, space, if I'm writing a book, I give one or maybe two examples, preferably with pictures. So if you see my book is absolutely full of you know, pictures. And these are all the, I'm sure you've seen them, these are the pyramids. explain why it is, why are the pyramids facing north, and you know
Right.
how Ayodhya is also facing north. So you know these are the vimans and the homes, and you know this is the chess. I mean,
Yes.
you this is like a little you know short course to
Absolutely, absolutely. It's not one book. I would say it's history, it's architecture, it's flora and fauna. I would say it's many things in one book. So,
yes.
and to that, I would take my next questions as you talk about the ancient civilization. So, so one question is like, as you've noticed the similarities in the cultures. We gave the example of Thailand, and you had some instances from Egypt, and we talked about one woman's name being Sita. She was a European. Now, with many similarities these native societies had. Interestingly, or I would say unfortunately, many of these native societies went on to be colonized by Western powers, and as per the colonial agenda, they destroyed what was good about their civilization, and they tried a lot to eradicate kind of those things from even the memory of the natives. So how do you? What's your take on that? I know you have talked about in this book that it's happened in many societies. So what's your take on the Western powers, the colonial powers, destroying what was in those native societies?
Okay, so Deepak Kimola is asking कौन सी book है sir? So Deepak ji, इस पुस्तक का नाम है Amazing Ayodhya. I was just showing it while he was
Okay,
asking. So my take on that is 100% true. Everything that you've said is 100% true. Now, this can be seen in 2-3 ways. So in ancient times when wars and battles used to be done, used to take place, the idea of eradicating a whole civilization never happened. The idea of eradicating civilizational values, civilizational ethos, and enforcing the other civilization to adapt to the other
yes,
civilization, to the attacking civilization, has come from the advent of Abrahamics. So if you take a look in all the civilizations that have lost themselves, either they have been replaced by Christianity,
right,
and then or by Islam, or first by Christianity and then by Islam. So if you take a look at the Egyptians, first the Romans conquered them, but then the Romans only conquered them. They didn't decimate the civilization. You know what I mean? There's a difference between conquering and letting
right,
them, go on with their
yes,
way of life. But then soon after the Romans were there, then the Christians took over. I mean, the Christians took over the Roman civilization, and then automatically the Egyptian. So they are called Coptics now. So that's
right,
what the Egyptian Christians are called. But then soon after, the Muslims took over,
right,
and then they went on destroying everything out there. So there were some of them who also tried to destroy the pyramids, but then it was such a Herculean task that they left it. So if you see
right,
the pyramids, there is actually a dent in the pyramids, one of them, because somebody tried to destroy it. They did the same thing with all civilizations.
right,
So and if you read about the Incan and the Mayan civilizations, how how they went into trying to discover India in America. So they were trying to find India. And one of the things that I was reading is that when they did all of that, they would take funding from the church, and they would say that we are going to conquer infidel lands to
right,
turn into Christian countries. And so they had this huge concept of everything Christian. So you will notice that anything that happened before the current era, before Christ, is considered as null and void. So everything that comes afterwards is considered
yes,
as being discovered later. So
yes,
yes, right. So this is what they did. So this is called brainwashing. And this brainwashing has been going on from their side. What is unacceptable to their political and religious views, they will not allow it to be, practiced by others. And
right,
the idea of a polytheistic group of people has always gotten their goat.
right,
So any polytheistic civilization that you know of is existing in the museums today, with the
yes,
exception of Hinduism, which is still alive and kicking, and therefore you will see
absolutely,
the numerous attacks on Hindus, the numerous attacks trying to prove that this is mythology, the numerous attacks on our culture. So this is just a new way of doing things because the previous ways have been considered barbaric now.
Right. So as you have studied Valmiki Ramayana, which has been your key source of writing this book, and you talked about a lot of other books, and I'm sure you might have read even more. So what you see any differences between the approach of various people who wrote these books, or the various sages and all? Any key differences you found in how they describe the ancient, you can say, Ayodhya, or any other thing which is relevant to your book?
So when I haven't read many authors, but I have researched about the various versions of the Valmiki Ramayana, and Valmiki Ramayana is one book that has captured the fancy of Jai Shri Ram Rameshwar Arya ji. Sorry, they're typing to me. So sorry for that. So so what they have done is that this Valmiki Ramayana has captured the imagination of people of, a number of ages across the globe. And, everybody wants to give their opinion of what is this and what is that. And I think there are more than 300 versions of the Valmiki Ramayana, and in languages there are more than 1,000 versions. Like I was reading an article and it said there were more than 1,000 versions in Telugu and Malayalam itself. So number of versions are out there. Each version, so there is the Jain version, the Buddhist version, the Bhil version, the Ramcharitmanas, numerous versions. There's Adbhuta Ramayana, there's that. Each one of these Ramayans is written in a time where they have tried to change the story in order to justify the actions or the socio-political environment that is happening there. It's a justification of that.
Right.
So if you, for example, I'll just give you a simple example. Even for that matter, for those of you who do not know, even the Uttarkand is an addition to the Valmiki Ramayana. Valmiki never wrote the Uttarkand. So a lot of people he didn't write it. No, he did not write it. So Uttarkand is an addition. Valmiki ji finished the Ramayana at Yuddhakand at the coronation of Bhagwan Ram.
Yes.
So the Ramayana is a Sukhant story. Like it has a happy ending. And then later what was added in Uttarkand, they made it a Dukhant, life ki tragic thi, which is not true. Which is not true. So they did it in order to accomplish many things. Most the Uttarkand was sort of added to reduce the importance of Bhagwan Ram because he's shown as a negative character. I mean his actions are shown as very negative. The way he abandons Sita, the way he offers alcohol to her to drink, the way he kills somebody, the way he tricks Lakshman into a lot of other things. So. That's a very negative portrayal. So that was done in order to break the image of Bhagwan Ram. And that has been even followed today. You see a lot of these, whenever they deifying Ravan, that's again a stunt to do the same, which is to reduce the impact of Bhagwan Ram on us. Now the other version. So I'll give you an example of, let's say, the Jain Ramayana. So in the Jain Ramayana, Ramji doesn't kill Ravan, Lakshmanji kills. So now you'd think, but that's not the story. The true story happened like this. They do that. Now if you understand Jainism, you understand that they are all about ahimsa. So if they're about ahimsa and not killing somebody, then they can't say that Ramji killed somebody.
Yeah.
So then you understand immediately why they're saying. Similarly, any other edition, any other version, you would understand, why they did that. But just you know the mentality. If you know a little bit of psychology, you'd know the mentality.
Right.
Yes. So This is a huge difference. Even in the English translations, there are errors and there are differences. People have tried to twist. So I've mentioned it in the book also.
Yes,
So
yes.
for example, the Dravid, the word Dravida is in the original Valmiki Ramayana, but it is not there in the English version, which is
Yes.
translated by South Indians.
Right.
So I noticed this as well.
And in fact, because one of the reasons is when many of the Sanskrit words are actually not really translatable to English. Like for dharma as a word which is often used, but let's be frank that it actually has no English equivalent. And that's the case not just with dharma, there are many Sanskrit words, and so they become quite open to misinterpretation by vested interest, because you can't really translate, you can't really put that context when you translate something. And as we just discussed, yes, it is open to misinterpretation, and it happens many a times.
So there is misinterpretation, which is very natural. So
Right.
misinterpretation is forgiven. In certain places, there's misinterpretation, and certain places there is there is misinterpretation on purpose. So, for
On
example,
the,
if you
yes.
yeah, so if you will read the Hindi version of the Valmiki Ramayana by the Gita Press, so wherever there are certain, so there is a chapter wherein there are the Vidyadhars. Okay, so Vidyadhars are a species of people, maybe
Right.
not Indians, right? Because they have some, they're able to levitate. So what they in Sanskrit it says there that they eat some kind of meat. So there's this they dry the meat and they eat it with some kind of chutney,
Yeah.
lehia, that which is
Yeah.
supposed to be licked, chutney basically. Like chavan prash is
Right.
lehia. But if you read the Hindi version, it doesn't say that. It just deletes it. So,
Right.
so Hindi version will delete the meat part of it.
Right.
The English version will have it. In the Sanskrit, the version is also there. So these are little things that I've seen. But the previous one that I was trying to point out is the insertion and deletion of certain words. So, like
Right.
for example, the word Dravida was added and deleted, and the word prachina was instead inserted
I did.
in the in the, and then they call it, this is the South Indian version of the
The version
Ramayana.
of Ramayana. Yes.
So these, so if you once you start getting into it, you find these very naughty, they're just being naughty,
Yes.
nothing.
Yes.
Misleading for people who don't know.
Who don't know, absolutely. So you talked a lot about the architecture in Ayodhya. So if you can tell us a bit about the architecture, one, and secondly, do you see similarities of the architecture of Ayodhya vis-a-vis the Harappan architecture?
So, okay, ask me one question at a time, because by the time I finish one, then I lose track of the other one.
Okay, so let's start with just describing in a bit about the Ayodhya architecture.
All right. So Ayodhya architecture. So in the Valmiki Ramayana, Ayodhya is described as a beautiful woman.
Yes.
So she's a beautiful woman, and her fortification is described as her kardhani, as her beauty, as so for example, Ayodhya has a stronghold. So in earlier times, everybody used to live within the four walls. The nagars used to be within the four walls of strong. What is a stronghold? A stronghold is a garh, like a kila, durg. So it has a massive boundary wall or fortification outside it, and
Yes.
within which residents and the kings and the queen and everybody lives. So it was like a defense mechanism, a natural defense, inbuilt mechanism against marauders, against invading armies. So it was done to protect these cities, and you will know this just by looking at the architecture. Otherwise, why would you build a wall around where you live? It's to protect yourself from onslaught, right? Why do you have a boundary wall? It's
Absolutely.
very simple and common knowledge. Why do you build a boundary wall? So that somebody cannot jump in, somebody cannot attack you, somebody cannot do that. So this is exactly that. So in Valmiki Ramayana, that's what they say. This fortification exists on the walls of the ramparts of the fortification. So rampart is where somebody can walk and then they keep their guns, and
Yes.
you'll movies, they'll they have the arrows or the guns, and they're shooting from those little loopholes. They're called loopholes in English. So they're
They're
shooting from
positioned strategically so as to, thwart any threat if from an enemy. Yes.
yes. So and then you have these little minarets. We call them minarets, but they're actually there's a Sanskrit word for it. Even I find it difficult to explain. So there are these round towers. In English, it's
Yes.
much. So they have these round towers circling, so people can go up and down, and they're jutting out. In English, they're also called bastions. So they used to
Yes.
have that. So and then after the fortification, either the forts used to be on top of hills, or so example, Lanka was on top of a hill.
Yes.
You take a look at the Ajmer Palace, the
Yes.
the hill of the in Ajmer, that's on top of a hill. Then
Yes.
you take a look at Shivaji's, durgs, they're on top of hills.
On top of
But
this.
so on top of a hill, you already have a natural defense. You don't need to build a very big moat. So where do you
Right.
have a moat? So Ayodhya has. So whenever you build a durg or or this fortification, so you build a moat around it so that the armies cannot come. Now the question is, what were the ancient armies like? So what were they protecting against? So Chaturang is the word of the ancient armies, Chaturang,
Yes.
which means that it has 4 parts, right? So Chaturang is your cavalry, which is on horse. You have chariots, again on horse. And then you have the elephants, elephant back. And so again, an animal. So you have 3 animals, and then you have the infantry. So the similar design is still copied by armies of today.
Yes.
So
Yes.
more
Absolutely.
you have the infantry. So my father is in the army, my uncles, my grandfather was also in the army. They're all infantrymen. So infantry is the one that goes forward. They're the ones who go forward. Then you have chariots. Then you have and chariots and other things, they've become tanks today, like
Thank
hathis.
Yes.
So this is how you go. So now to stop the entry of tanks even today, you build something like a ditch cum band. It's called a ditch cum band in today's language. In earlier times, they used to call them moats. So if you take a look at armies today and how their defense works, it's the same concept with the words changed. Okay.
Yes.
So it's very interesting. So Ayodhya has a moat, and what does a moat do? So if there is water, a big body of water, and by the way, anybody who's listening can take a look at it in my book as well. I've drawn the pictures of the moats. Different types have been shown to show the defense fortification. And this is Angkor Wat. So those of you who can see, this is Angkor Wat. So this is what I'm trying to explain. Ayodhya was exactly like this.
Similar to this, yes.
It was surrounded by water. This was the moat, and the moat protected the 3 ang of the armies from entering it, which is the ang with the armies. So, sorry, the ang with the animals. So animals will find it very difficult to cross this. Okay.
Yes.
Then Raja Dashrath grew a jungle around Ayodhya. So do yojan, for 2 yojans, he grew a dense sal tree forest. So you can see the forest here.
Yes.
Of course, Angkor Wat is now a forest, but then this is the best picture I could find that related to Ayodhya, that showed Ayodhya, what it was. And it was, and why did they do this? They did this to protect their cities. They did this to protect people. And why do I name, why did I put all of these here? I put this to show people about the continuity of human civilization, about the continuity of the Hindu civilization across the world, the Hindu ideas, the Hindu system of warfare, the Hindu system of defense. I mean, today we play chess. So, how many of us even know that the whole concept of chess comes from the Hindus, and it comes from the Chaturanga armies, and it was done to protect, or it was done to teach kings and princes how to protect, how to go into battle, how to conceive attack formations, defense formations. It's the easiest way. Even so, when I was growing up, even my father used to have all these war game setups and everything going on. So as a young girl, I remember all those maps and all those terrain. They used to have it on terrain as well, so they all knew the terrain that they were in. Very interesting. So I mean, it's impressive. It's impressive what Ayodhya used.
Absolutely. No.
And so I think your other question was, what were the similarities between Ayodhya
Ayodhya architecture and the Harappan architecture.
Okay, so the Harappan architecture, so we have Dholavira, right? So Dholavira, I have mentioned Dholavira in the book. And one of the reasons I mentioned Dholavira is because it follows a very similar layout to Ayodhya, which is a very rectangular structure. Now,
Right.
Dholavira, like in an island, and Khadir Beth, they call it. And so Dholavira is also rectangular, Ayodhya is also rectangular.
Yeah.
And if you Arthashastra, so Arthashastra clearly defines the 4 types of fortifications that that require to be there. And so Dholavira copies that. It's rectangular, it's on an island. So for example, what was on an island? Lanka was on an island, island and on top of a mountain. So Lanka was also very similar to Dholavira. Now, the word Dholavira, what does it mean? So if you take a look at it, so it means it's Dhavalah Veera. So Dhavalo Veera. So from Dhavalo Veera, it has become Dholavira. So in Sanskrit, whenever there is Visarg and you co-join those words, so the becomes O. So Dhavalah Veera becomes Dhavaloha Veera. So then over a period of time, it became Dholavira. Okay. And how the language, the word got twisted. The word Dhavala means white. So why is it called white? White, it's because it is in the wraith there, the sand there is whitish in color, the salt, right? So Dhaval means white in Sanskrit. Right. And what is Veera? Veera, who is Veer? Veera is plural. So Veer, who is Veer? The brave. The brave. Veer means the brave. So who are the brave? The Kshatriyas are the brave. They have always been considered the brave in Hindu civilization. So if you take a look at Ayodhya, which was again built by Kshatriyas, it was built by the first man of, the first man on earth, supposedly. So, these are cities made by Kshatriyas, and they follow all the, patterns of Arthashastra. And Arthashastra, it's not that Arthashastra is our first book. Arthashastra is what we have retained. It's one of the most recent books. So all of this really matches. Everything matches. Absolutely. So in fact, a lot of people don't know, but Ayodhya is the prototype for a lot of city construction, whether in Japan, whether you Harappa, whether we talk of Japan, whether we talk of China, whether we talk of Thailand, whether we talk of Angkor Wat, all of it, for all of them, the prototype is Ayodhya. Right. And imagine, and we're telling everybody that Ayodhya is mythical. Imagine that. Or that it's just crazy. Right.
In fact, interestingly, Dholavira, as you talked about the white sand and all, in Gujarat, you can still find white sand at the run of Kutch, and Dholavira is also in Gujarat. So there's still that evidence of white sand, and people go there as a tourist spot, run of Kutch, without actually realizing the historic significance of that white sand.
Not only that, I'll just add this, that recently in these, this was found in, and this is not in Khadir Beth, this was in another, I made a reel about this. So there is Dholavira and there's Rakhigadi. So Rakhigadi is also another civilization, again in the Harappan, I think in the Harappan thing itself. In Rakhigadi, they found jewelry making factories.
Yes.
Ancient jewelry. So they found gold and they found all of that. What a lot of people do not know is that in ancient times, it was not only women who wore jewelry. I mean, when you make jewelry, it's not only women. If you read Ayodhya, if you read about Ayodhya, I have written very clearly about the decoration of palaces and homes in Ayodhya. Yes. So in ancient times, they would plate their palaces with gold. And this is done even today. So the Egyptian civilization did it. The Incan civilization did it. So the Incan civilization would make plates of gold and put it on their walls. The Egyptian civilization, they would make, everything was gold, caskets of gold for their pharaohs. Inside it was either painted or gold. even the Thai palace today, it's made on the the description of the Ramayana, so everything is gold, and you see those beautiful gems that they put it on there. So whenever you find something like this, you can take it for granted that people were decorating the insides of their houses with gold, gems studded in gold, and I've given all that information in the book
Yes,
itself.
absolutely. So, talking about Ayodhya, talked a lot of things of Ayodhya, but I think no discussion on Ayodhya can be complete without Lord Ram. So, as again someone who has read Valmiki Ramayana and the scriptures in detail, how would you, if you were to talk about Maryada Purushottam, what would you talk about Lord Ram?
A lot of misinformation is given about Ram and Sita, especially the character traits that I've noticed. There's a lot of misinformation in the Valmiki Ramayana. For example, Ram is very nice, very good, but his anger is something that you have to be. His wrath is something that you have to be scared of, because
Right.
when he gets angry, even Indra gets scared. His
Yeah.
anger than that of Indra.
Right.
So, one of the things that I notice is that in due course of time, what a lot of writers and what a lot of people have done, and this comes from a very warped thinking of what a good human should be. So they have made our gods and goddesses into characterless, passive people. Why do I call them characterless? Not characterless per se, but passive people.
Absolutely.
Like they never get angry. They are so calm. They never have emotional disturbances.
Right.
You notice it in the characterization. They're
Yes.
always good, like nothing affects them. No, this is dangerous, because this is a psychopathic personality. They're charming and nothing ruffles them, then they're psychopathic personalities,
Right.
going by. If you read the Valmiki Ramayana, you will come across the personalities of Bhagwan and Sita Ma as normal human beings. They
Normal.
experience normal human beings. They are
Yes.
experiencing emotions of loss. Ramji
Right.
is crying, Sita is taken away. Ramji gets angry. Ramji makes resolves. Ramji, there is a point in the Valmiki Ramayana when Sita disappears, right? And Ram is beside himself. He goes mad. He's searching for Sita. He's asking the trees. He's asking he's asking anything that is there. He's like, have you seen Sita? Have you seen Sita? Have the Rakshas taken her? That's a normal human reaction of a man whose life is in his wife.
Yes.
His pran, she's his, and he calls her pran pyari, who is more, she's more, she's beloved to such an extent that he'd rather lose his life than to lose her. Prano se pyari, pyari, or equal to, like she's equal to, my life or her, like, is the same. And then again, there is this really beautiful description in when he goes in search of Sita, and so he then finds Hanuman, and he finds the other people who will help him, the Vanars. He finds them, and the Vanars say, oh, was that Sita? I thought that was Sita. We found her, she dropped her jewelry. So when he sees the jewelry, he falls down on earth crying, sobbing, and he's so upset, and so everybody has to so there is this whole thing that they're trying to console him, and he's blabbering to to Lakshman, saying, see this is Sita's jewelry, have you seen this? And see this. And how when you're in pain and you're looking for somebody, you find something, you're so excited.
Yes.
So and these are very beautiful, normal human emotions. Yes. This, I don't think anybody can bring it out as beautifully as Valmiki does. And then he's so angry with Ravan that he says, because of the treachery that Ravan is the king of Rakshas. Now this is a king and with the king of humans, right? Ram is the king of humans, and he's the king of Rakshas, right? He says, because of the treachery done by Ravan, I am going to vanquish the whole of the Rakshas
Yes.
a species from Earth. They are a species of people. They're not the same as Homo sapiens. They're a different species. They're not a caste. They're not they're not a clan. They're nothing. Sometimes they use these words, but they are a different species than Homo sapiens. Ramji is a Homo sapien, the king of Homo sapiens, and this is another breed. And so he says, I'm going to finish off this civilization, get rid of them. I mean, if your king is so treacherous, imagine how your other Rakshas will be. And so this is, so he says, and this is why he is so, worshipped, because he got rid of these people who would feast on Homo sapiens. So they're also a breed of Homo, but they would prey on us. They were cannibalistic. They would eat us. And so he says, this is done. They are not going to live. And that's what he does. He goes and does that. He wins Sita. He kills him. And so you see, this is not the work of a man who doesn't experience emotions. Anybody who takes a resolve like this feels very deeply and has anger, wants vengeance, wants justice. So these are some traits that I think that, they have not put it in what we assume Ram as. And same goes for Sita. Sita is not somebody who takes something lying down. She's very assertive. She knows what she wants. And she repeatedly humiliates Ravan every time he comes to tell her to leave, Ram. A woman who has the capacity to humiliate another king, another powerful man, and tell him to go. I mean, and you read the comparison. She says, you are like a jackal, or you are like this. You are this lowly person, and Ram is like this. You are like a, there is a particular word which could mean a spitter. Like, you're like, she almost says you're like, and he's the deep ocean with so much water. So the comparison between you humiliates him. No woman can do that unless that woman is a very strong woman and she knows her. So, and she's a woman who is very muffat. आज के ज़माने में ऐसी लड़कियों को muffat बोला जाता है. So this is a personality change that I've seen, and you see what Sita is in common day shows.
Right.
Passive.
Passive, yes. In fact, this is being misinterpreted by many as, that our religion in Hindu Dharma, women are always passive and they are always subservient to men. But in reality, those who actually bother to read the text, like you have done, either Ramayana or even Mahabharata, you will actually get to understand how strong actually the women were.
It's
so
it's the other way around scriptures.
Yeah, exactly. But this is how, unfortunately, it's being misinterpreted. That this is how they have been dealt with, and they have got a raw deal always, which is not really the case. The scriptures are a lot about women's rights, women empowerment, and both are epics, Ramayana, Mahabharata. If those who bother to read them, they will realize that it is about women having a very equal place, a strong place in the society, and not like in a way subservient to men, that they are the warrior clans and they just have to do the household chores and that's it. Just like you mentioned about Sita, Draupadi did the similar thing in Mahabharata with the Pandavas, and she always reminded them that I had been disturbed and you have to take that revenge. So, but yeah, now fortunately with people like you writing, at least these things are reaching more and more people, and they're getting a better sense of what exactly is there in our scriptures.
Yes, and in fact, just to add a little bit to what you said, you mentioned these two very sort of empowered women. There was another empowered woman, Keke.
Yes.
Imagine she calls the shots on the kingdom. She says, "You made me 2 promises, and so those 2 promises are what?" So she says, you're going to send Ram out, and you're going to, for 7 years, he's going to be out. And then, so he and my son will become the king. So that's what she says, right? So 7 and 7, she says. So there's a calculation. The 14 years, she calculates 14 years, it'll take for them to, so anyway, that's unimportant. So how does she have the power to do that? She has the power to change who's going to be the king based on a promise. And that too, and and if women were so downtrodden, if they were lachar and nothing, the husbands weren't listening to them, then would this take place? This would have never taken place. This shows the direct empowerment of women in the ancient past, which people will very conveniently forget to mention.
Yes.
And then even if you read the Valmiki Ramayana, you take a look at how Ramji connects with Sita. Ramji never refuses Sita anything. If she says something, he has to go and execute it. There is no saying no to a woman, never. And in fact, the Hiran that he goes after was Sita's desire. And he goes against and Lakshman warns him, this is Marich, don't go. He says, no, let me go. She wants it, let me go. And he convinces Lakshman that he has to go. So if you take a look at the way he protects Sita, the way he listens to her, and instead Sita is the one who says no to him again and again. Yes. And there's this point in the Valmiki Ramayana, and people who will find this very interesting, that when Ram is sent to the jungle, he says, I have to go. And then he starts telling Sita that how to be, how to respect the king of your kingdom, how to behave with the king of the kingdom, because it's going to be Bharat. So at one point, she says, you don't need to teach me these manners. My parents taught me well. Right? So she's a woman who just says, don't say all these things to me. My parents taught me well. In today's world, if somebody says this or you read this, you're like, oh, how is she talking to her husband?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this subservient role of women is an imposition on women. This is my observation. I hope that it's very clear for everybody, the personality difference.
Absolutely. So I think one can say that understanding these things from a human perspective is actually very important to make better sense of it, something which even the followers or the readers of our scriptures may not actually be doing, looking at them from a human perspective, rather than putting them on a pedestal that okay, is flawless or the Maryada Purushottam. But yes, we have to look at the human angle as well, that no one is completely flawless, and even if we treat them as God, doesn't mean that they cannot do anything which is wrong. So understanding that perspective is something I would say very important. So one last question before we open it to the audience. We'll have a 5-minute timeline for that. So one last question. So as you are a reader of Sanskrit, so any advice for those who want to learn Sanskrit?
So I recommend short courses in Sanskrit, and then if you can, there are two types of Sanskrit. There's spoken Sanskrit and there's the Sanskrit in the scripture. So decide what you want. Yes. Spoken Sanskrit can be learned within a week, 10 days. You'll have a basic knowledge of spoken Sanskrit. Right. Like, Mam nam Neena asti, Tvam nam kim, this basic. And the thing is that a lot of people, when we are in school, there is this need of perfection that is imposed on us. Remove this need of perfection. Remove the need of being grammatically correct. Forget grammar. Just be able to communicate in Sanskrit in a manner that the other person can, understand. If you can't say, glass, if you don't know what the word for glass is, just say glassam. This. You could learn it in this manner. So one of the things that holds people back from learning Sanskrit is that they focus a lot on grammar as well. So just forget grammar. Right. Just go into vocabulary building. Grammar comes at a later stage. Start learning or start reading small books on Sanskrit. Start doing start taking small courses. A language is something that is learned over a period of time. So don't put your pressure on yourself to learn it. There are many people who teach Sanskrit. Start following a lot of people who are teaching Sanskrit online, just for fun. Make it a part of your daily life, and then you'll reach a stage where you're able to do this. There is always an idea of learning a language. So why do you want to learn Sanskrit? Do you want to learn Sanskrit so you can read the Kam Shastra? Do you want to learn Sanskrit because you want to read Itihas? Do you want to learn Sanskrit because you want to understand astrology like Jyotish? Do you
Yeah.
want to read Sanskrit because you understand chemistry? So chemistry has other books. Do you want to read Sanskrit for, it could be a number of things you want to read Sanskrit. So
Absolutely.
start learning Sanskrit and just jump into what your favorite topic is, what you have interest in. And in that way, in that manner, your learning will be much faster.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that's really some useful advice. And now we open the next 5 minutes to open it for the audience. So those who are watching, any questions you have, please write it down, and Neena will answer those questions. So you can see if there are any questions till now. Okay, so there is already one. Please share some topics about your upcoming new book. So anything, if you're planning to write a new book, and anything you want to tell about that.
Yeah, so I am currently translating, which is a humongous task. So I'm translating my book, Amazing Ayodhya, into a Hindi, book. And people are very happy about it. They're really waiting so that they can gift it to their grandmothers, grandparents, or, parents don't speak English. So this is something that I am doing as of now. So this is it. After this is done, then I'll start working on my other books. I have a series of books that should come, but it takes a lot of time. And if anyone has read my book, they would know that every little fact that I have cited here, I have given reference to it. I
Yes.
have given, everything is referenced. In fact, all the shloks of Valmiki Ramayana are referenced. So if you will see all the shloks, everything has a reference. Everything has a picture, as much as information I could give. In fact, at some places I've come to certain, meanings and, whatever you want to call it, to describe certain things. So for example, there's this weapon called a kshohini. So I have tried to, explain it through here. And I've gone about explaining the research in the book itself.
Yes.
So it takes a lot of time to verify everything, search everything, open the sources, learn it, do it, make sure that you're not making a mistake. So the other books should be interesting. The Hindi book was much requested by people. So, it'll be great. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, of course. I mean, writing such a book is, of course, not at all an easy task. As you need to be very thorough with what you are writing, and of course, it does require a lot of effort. So let me check if we have more questions. So, okay, it's not a question but an observation. Sita had strong character. She was very Mufat to our current standards. Indeed, maybe not a physical warrior, but very strong position and mental strength. Indeed, I think that's true, and very much in line with what you talked about, Sita. So
Absolutely. Imagine 1 year she spent being a captive by another man who kept making advances at her, and she kept denying him and said, I'd rather, their words there. She said, I'd rather die than to be with you. I'd rather that she said, you've captured me, kill me. Almost, these are not the exact words I'm saying. This is in Sanskrit. So, the way she talks is a bit different. I mean, how many women can say married to the most powerful, abducted by the most powerful man or the most powerful king who says, I mean, he says to Sita, anything in the world is yours. I will
yes,
give my whole kingdom to you. It is yours. Be
yes,
mine. Come to my bed. Again and again, he says, come to my bed. She says, no, no, no. And the women, the Rakshasis are torturing her. You think that this is the work of a woman with a weak mind? This is a woman
no,
with a very
not at all.
strong two wits. And, and then the description is there. She gets thinner and thinner and thinner and weaker and weaker. And she's almost, because she can't eat, she's so anxious. She doesn't want to eat. So they show her how, like, she gets thinner and thinner. I mean, you read it, you'll know how she feels tortured, how she feels, where is Ram? She keeps crying for Ram. And, it's beautiful if anybody, reads that. So this very devoted, very strong woman, it's amazing. It's an amazing piece of work, the way Valmiki ji has written it.
Absolutely. So we are on top of time. We'll just take one last question. It's from A. Kanika 7. Besides history, any other hobbies or things you love to do?
So I like watching movies. I watch movies. I paint. I'm also an artist, so I paint, and I do many things. But these are the two of my favorite things. I also am very good at organizing. So I really enjoy organizing things around my house, and I like to travel. So I've traveled a lot of places. I like traveling. I like hanging out. I'm any normal person. I like hanging out with my friends. I like going to coffee shops. Any normal girl. I like going to, people's homes, connecting. I like watching. Sometimes I watch Netflix. I don't have a lot of time. I watch a lot of YouTube. And I have a lot of interest in psychology. So I read a lot. I read a lot. Science, technology, psychology.
All right, that's wonderful to know. So we have two more questions. If you are okay, we can take up two more questions. So,
we have time.
Any particular chronology as to when Uttarakhand was added, considering the political bent of distortion of character of Lord Ram, it seems more recent, around 2000 years. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, they are correct. It's around 2000 years. I think the character of Ram would have been distorted when the Gnostics, either by the Abrahamics or, it's very difficult to say exactly who did it, but the person who did it wanted to bring down the character of Ram to lessen his importance in our eyes. So around 2000 years ago is the time that I would also assume that's generally the idea. 2000 years ago, because you see that a lot of books after that have come out which then keep discussing this. He left her, what happened to Sita, he did this, he did that, so all of that comes within the realm of 2000 years. So the amount, because you see now what you've done is you've taken this good human positive traits of Ram in the first part, and in the second part is just a negative thing. So there's dichotomy between two people. So yeah, I would also say around 2000. That's what the experts also say, 2000 years ago.
All right. So we'll take one last question before we end this session, and it's share some of your favorite episodes from Mahabharata, if you like.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you the particular portions of Mahabharata as a scientific researcher that I explored. And of course, other people told me about. So there is this story of Matsya Kanya, Matsya, or the queen of the fisher, the princess of the fisher, right? Or Matsya Kanya. So anybody who knows, she is the second wife. She's the one. I think Shantanu marries. I'm not very well versed with the Mahabharata as such, so pardon me if I make any mistakes in taking the correct names. Bhisham Pitama's stepmother. So Bhisham Pitama is the son of Ganga. Then when the father marries, I think her name is Satyavati in the thing. So, and she's called Matsya Gandha, not Matsya Gandha. So I was sitting with Conrad Elst. I put the picture. Conrad is holding my book. So Conrad and I were discussing, Ramayana, Mahabharata. We love to discuss these things. And he said, one of his friends wrote this thing about Matsya Gandha. So there is this disease. This is a disease would be the wrong term, but there is this thing that happens to women, and it's it's a very complicated term. So pardon, telemuria or tele something it's called. So it's called the fish smell. So a very few people have this disorder. It's a disorder, sometimes supposed to be a genetic disorder. And very few people in a million have it. And what it does is that it gives your body a fishy smell. So everything around you smells like a fish. And it can be exacerbated by your job or what you eat. Now, this lady called Matsya Gandha also smells like fish, right? And it is mentioned, and then how she gets rid of the smell also is mentioned. And so it is done by Ved Vyas's father, and so the son is Vyas. Yeah. So he gives her a boon in return of him having, a sexual tryst with her and giving him a son. So he will remove that, and anybody who has read that, they'll find it very exciting. And why I'm saying this particular episode is very fascinating, and not a lot of people will discuss it, because it's actually a problem even today. So what the ancients were telling us, they were not lying to us. They were not making all of this up. They saw things and then they named them accordingly, and they described the same phenomena. And I actually went and researched a lot of women who were interviewed about this, and they spoke of their embarrassment. They said, we smell like this, we are being ostracized, we want to get, they're ready to do anything to get rid of that smell. So and so you understand that. So that was one. And the other is the incident of Gandhari, when she is not having a child, and she's pregnant for more than a year. So this is also a problem. A lot of women miscarry when they are carrying children. So when they are pregnant, they miscarry. And this research was done by me. The previous research was done by another researcher. I got the research and I read it, and I was absolutely fascinated about it. The names that I took of the Western names were incorrect, but then the other, so just look it up if you want to take a look at it. Just Google smelly fish women, or, fish smelling women. What is the disorder called? And so this other thing is that when women miscarry, it is not always that the child comes out of the body. A lot of times what happens is that the child gets fossilized within the body and is unable to come out. And the same thing happened with Gandhari. And in Hindi language, ek potha sa nikalta hai, like that's what they would describe. So it's like a lump. It comes out like a lump. It gets calcified and it comes out as a lump. And so when what Gandhari goes through is described as that she gave birth to like this lump. That lump was given to the rishi, who said, no, wait. And he then put it in 100, makes 100 children.
100,
right?
Yes.
So this thing that this fossilization, calcification, fossilization is the wrong word, but this calcification of a dead child inside a woman's womb is a very natural phenomenon that has been recorded by a lot of women, especially in areas which are, remote, and, they've carried their children for as much as many years, 10, 15, 20, the people who don't have access to medical stuff. So I've watched many documentaries about it, and I saw this because that's exactly the same that has happened to Gandhari. So this is my research that I did, and it's just fascinating. So I'm just sharing it with everybody who's here.
That's really.
And why it's exciting is because the same problems that we have today, the same disorders, the same things were also happening in ancient times.
In ancient times, absolutely.
And how accurately they have been recorded in our scriptures for somebody like me today to be able to comprehend what exactly they are talking about.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Great. So I think we are on top of time. It's 5:06. But Neena, thank you very much for coming and having this talk today. It was really enlightening, I would say. And all the best for the translation of this book and your upcoming books. And thank you everyone who attended the session today. It was lovely having all of you there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope that you have either read either read Amazing Ayodhya or are going to get it. And, let me know your thoughts about how you liked it and which is your favorite part also. And once the Hindi book comes out, do share it with your, do buy it and give it to your grandparents and, everybody else. They'd really appreciate it.
All right, great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, Neena. Thank you very much again. Thank you.